we are getting so many ads and they all look the same. There's like little tiny differences. And then we're spending money on all of them and we're wasting a ton of money on these little tiny differences. We need to be making bigger swings.
What's your philosophy on creator content, partnership ads, and how important those are in the account?
They're extremely important. What I've started rolling out with a lot of my clients is
What are some common themes that you see brands making mistakes with when it comes to their growth?
brands need to just be really hyper-focused on their strategy. And typically that is going to be your meta and your content, your organic strategy, your email and SMS strategy, and your marketing calendar. What are the things that you're doing to add excitement to the brand? Hyper-focus on those things.
It's a D2C podcast, and I am back here with Sarah Carusona. If you're watching video, your eyes do not deceive you. It is Halloween today. This won't come out on Halloween. This will come out in like 2 or 3 weeks, so you'll be wondering why I'm dressed like Heisenberg. But that's what and I didn't tell Sarah I was doing it today, so she just has her regular getup. Welcome back to the D2C podcast. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm good. Excellent. And I'm actually in Mexico City right now, and there's a lot of celebration here for Dia de Muertos. So it's pretty fun.
It's high on my list, Mexico City. What an amazing city it sounds like. Are you staying there? Are you living there or just visiting?
We've been living in Mexico for about 6 months, and we spent about 5 months in Mexico City and then 1 month in Oaxaca City.
Nice.
It's awesome. It's like, I never lived in New York, but a lot of people compare it to New York City. I mean, it's ginormous, but the food here is just out of this world. And it's not just Mexican food. Like there's most of my husband and I talk, and most of our favorite restaurants in Mexico City are like not Mexican food. I mean, because the Mexican food, like the best food you get is like on the street.
Totally.
But like there's like, I mean, we've been to like Michelin star restaurants that are like there was a Mediterranean place we went. It was amazing. Anyways, it's really
truly
cool.
International city.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, catch me up on your journey, because I think the last time we've kind of connected a little bit on socials and stuff, but the last time we spoke was when you were here for our event in 2023, when you were still brand side, I think, at that point.
Yeah. So I think when I came to that event, I had just started doing like some fractional, like CMO type consulting. So I was kind of like brand side, but in the fractional sense, whatever you want to call it. But I actually have you to thank for the launch of my consultancy, because it was at that event that I met my very first client and who is still with me today. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love the way that works out.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I met you all there, I was still in Chicago. But then since then, my husband and I moved to Argentina. We were in Buenos Aires for 6 months. And then we've been in Mexico for the last, like I said, like 5, 6. And then we're actually going back to Buenos Aires on this weekend.
And for all the people listening who are looking to make a change or take a leap, how has it worked out for you, this leap of faith that you made into kind of really focusing on your own thing?
I so recommend it. And I think what I would recommend is, it's worked out very well for me, is that I didn't define exactly what I wanted to do right away. I kind of just trialed things out. So like I said, when we met last year, I was doing kind of fractional CMO just on my own. And I saw some issues with that and some challenges with that. So then I trialed out kind of like a different offer. And I allowed myself to not be so strict in like defining my offer before I actually worked with people. Instead, I tried to like work with people in flexible ways and understand like the actual needs of the businesses I wanted to work with. And then from doing that over time, I basically was able to like identify the main pain points and say like, okay, cool, I can design an offer around that. And that's what allowed me to launch BA Commerce, and it's been going really well from there. And I highly recommend it. I love working for myself and being able to do your own things.
Describe where you've landed with your offer. Like, I guess every agency comes to the table with a take on how things should be better, how things should be done. What's your sort of thesis on what a growth operator should be doing?
Yeah. So for me, let me back up for a second. So the challenges that I saw with fractional CMO was I could come in and I could say, hey, I'm working, 20 hours a week on your brand, or I'm working, 3 days a week, or whatever it was. But that's just me. And I'd be working with their team. But what I found was like I could I could do the strategy and I could do some of the execution, but especially the businesses that I work with, which tend to be like high 7 figures, low 8 figures. So they're in this like real growth phase and they don't have a huge pool of resources. They really need people who are in the weeds, like getting shit done day in, day out. And don't get me wrong, I can get to that to an extent, but there's always more that's needed. And on top of that, what I started to identify is that a lot of these companies are also trying to hire like a head of growth. And that's a really hard position to hire because you either find that somebody like me who's like, I'm not going to be a head of growth for one brand anymore. Like I'm past that in my career. Or you're going to find somebody who is super, super expensive, or you're going to find somebody who maybe has some of the experience, but not all of it. And they need just a little bit of training. And so as I started to talk with a lot of people, both like brand side and people in the industry who were trying to become head of growth, I was like, there's like this like supply and demand kind of gap going on here. And I love to coach. I love to train. I love, helping people in their careers. So basically the offer that I designed is we come in, so BA Commerce is a consultancy, and we have kind of like 3 main offers. But what it essentially is that we have a growth operators who are trained directly under me. These are people that I've worked with hand in hand on a client or in the past, or who have gone through like all of my kind of training materials, and we deploy them on a brand under my guidance. And so basically I become their pseudo like manager. I'm the person that they're troubleshooting with, that they're coming to for ideas and all of that. But otherwise they are in the brand day in and day out. And the way that we work, our statement of work is basically grow your brand. So it's whatever that means for your particular situation. So we basically work with the clients and we identify like what team members they currently have, what team members they're missing, and then we like insert ourselves. A part of our onboarding is we design an org chart and we're like, okay, here's where we sit. And these are the people we're managing. This is the like roles that we're taking based on what they already have. We'll also work with them to say like, hey, this person's been doing this, but they're actually way better at that. So maybe we kind of like help to reposition some people just to be able to design the team in the way that can fully support the growth of the brand. And then we're in it day in and day out. So we've got a whole, I call it a growth hub. We've got a whole forecasting and tracking model from a day-to-day perspective on contribution, ad spend, MER, AMER, cohort models, contribution. We work on Amazon, we work on TikTok. It's really just a way for us to be able to fully insert ourselves in the brand and for them to solve the need of needing kind of a head of growth who can also get into execution. And then the other things that we do differently is like we don't have we do a 30-day opt-out. So we don't do harsh like, hey, you got to sign with us for the next 6 months, because I hated that on the brand side. So I'm like, hey, you can. It's low risk for you if you guys are trying to figure out if you can find the right head of growth. Like this is a very low risk way to do that. And then we don't have any harsh non-solicitations. So part of what I wanted to do is allow the people who work with BA Commerce, if they really want to work with a brand and they really want to be fully in-house and work full-time for a brand, I want to give them the opportunity to be able to do that if it makes sense for them and the brand. So we just have, hey, if like the growth operator and the brand decide that that is the route they want to go, then it's just a 30-day notice and like a 20% referral, which is kind of your typical referral fee for recruiting. So it's a little bit different than I think a lot of agencies, but it's been really fun because I get a lot of really, really hungry people who are like just want to learn, want to get in the weeds, want to work with these small businesses, and the small businesses need people like that. And then I'm able to oversee from like the strategic level to make sure that we're like going in the right direction and lend my kind of expertise from my past experiences.
So in a platform agnostic growth shop, what are the metrics or when you come into a brand, what are the key metrics you're looking to get a handle on in order to grow?
What I typically do before I even work with a client is I tell them to send me their P&L. And I say like, hey, I want to do some due diligence on my end. So I typically look at their P&L so I've got an idea of all of their expenses, their top line, their bottom line. Once we start working with the client, some of the first things that I want to define is how much can we spend to acquire a customer based on what they need from a first purchase contribution versus an LTV. So we've got some clients who are in supplements, so they're cool with, losing 26% or more on that first purchase because they're making their money back in, 2 to 3 months, and they can scale to the moon. And they've got enough repeat coming in that they're still profitable. I've got other clients who are in apparel. That's obviously a very different situation. We want to be first purchase profitable. How much do we need that to be? Once we have that, then it becomes, okay, now if our AMER target is a 2 or our AMER target is a 1.5, whatever that is, then we break that down into what that looks based on their channel mix. Okay, what does that mean? What does Meta have to drive? What does that ROAS need to look like? How much should we be spending there? What does that look like for Google? What does that look like for TikTok? Any other channels that they have? We're looking at their repeat, so their LTV, like what's their LTV look like in 3, 6, 9, and 12 months, with a real big focus on that like 3-month period, because that's typically when you're going to see the biggest bump. We're looking at, their flows and understanding, like, do they have systems in place that are kind of promoting that second or third purchase or subscription, depending on the brand. And then understanding all of their costs. So understanding their COGS, their shipping. Got some clients that are dealing with tariffs. So understanding all of that full picture to be able to then say, okay, here are the main opportunities. And from a numbers perspective, like, okay, we know we need to hit this 1.5 AMER, but currently we're at a 1.2. What are the like 5 things that we're going to do to improve that? Is that we got to fix conversion rate, we got to have a higher AOV bundled offer, we've got to get better ads that are more engaging, and we kind of identify that, and then we say, okay, now how do we fix that? Like if it's an ad situation, then it's okay, diving into the account, understanding what's working, what hasn't worked. Obviously looking at other things in the industry. Creators are a huge thing right now. And then we work with their team, or we hand-on deploy the strategy to be able to get the ads in the account that are going to help us to scale at that AMER.
Speaking about Meta, we're living in the age of Andromeda, which again, not new. It's been around for a while. But
is that how you pronounce it? Andromeda?
Andromeda, yeah. How were you saying it?
I say Andromeda. I don't know. In my head, I've always said it that way.
Potato, but I think generally in the astrological terms, it's Andromeda.
Okay. Maybe I've just never heard it said out loud, and I've just been thinking about it in my head.
You heard it here first, folks. It's Andromeda. That's hilarious. We've done some content on it, and I've actually done. I just did a podcast with Nate Lagos where he said I think the smart marketers were already thinking about Meta and advertising in the way Andromeda wants you to think, I think in some ways, where smart marketers were creating smart personas based on that persona's drives and desires as to why they want to buy that product, building that into your creative, potentially into your landing page, creating these conversion tunnels. But it seems like that's really what Andromeda prioritizes. Is that something that you're seeing, or is that exercises you do with your brands?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, because I've also had this notion for a while now that once consolidation, like going back, 2 to 3 years, like once people were like, okay, we've got to consolidate and we're taking less control of the media buyer and we're not going to scale an account by setting up 15 different campaigns and age targeting and whatever else. And it became all about creative. And so then everybody's like, okay, now it's about creative. And so then the media buyer starts to be like, well, I can't do anything. I need more creative. So then teams are like, okay, we're going to pump creative and we're going to get like 500 ads a month and we're going to have these win rates and all of this stuff. And then what I started seeing is I was like, we are getting so many ads and they all look the same, or there's like little tiny differences. And then we're spending money on all of them and we're wasting a shit ton of money on these little tiny differences. And I remember starting to push my clients away from, hey, we don't need to spend on every single iteration and every single ad, but also 2, we need to be making bigger swings. And so, yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things that I really am interested now with a lot of my clients is once you start to see scale with a certain message or offer, it's then how do you understand what audience that is targeting, and then how do you figure out a different persona that you can then create new campaigns and offers and ads around that really are trying to target a net new person.
We've been saying since iOS 14.5 or whatever that creative is the new targeting, but it's you're right. It's not going to be a button color change, or it's going to be something in that ad speaking to something in the person. And you don't always know what that is. It could be their hairstyle. It could be the kitchen they're in. It could be you don't know what is going to be the hook. And so you got to have that actual diversity.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be really hard for creative teams now, because they're not going to be able to pump out as much creative or as high a volume, because it's going to be more about the diversity and the kind of almost research and background that goes into it.
What's your approach? I know it'll change by brand, but what's your philosophy on creator content, partnership ads, and how important those are in the account?
I think they're extremely important. So I had a moment early 2025 where I was working with a client, and we have a couple key influencers that we partner with, and we do some whitelisting access through and whatnot. And then we had, an agency where we were doing all of these different types of UGC ads and image ads, and we were trying everything under the sun to get things to work. And it wasn't working. Everything, it was just these creators were the best ads. And I had this moment where I was like, let's stop doing any of that shit. Let's just double down on creators. If that's what's working, like double down on it. And so what I've started rolling out with a lot of my clients is a kind of tiered influencer affiliate program. So kind of taking the playbook of TikTok shops basically and applying it to Meta. So as a simple example, we would have tier 1 would be affiliates. And so this is anybody that we want to work with that we can send them a promo code, they get a commission, etc. Just basic, they get the product, all that good stuff. Then if they are at a certain follower count or they're starting to drive enough revenue for us, or we really like their content for paid, we get them into tier 2. In tier 2, we basically give them a percentage of ad spend or a percentage of revenue, which I used to be very much against, but I'd rather do that than just pay them $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month and have 30 days whitelisting access and have no idea if it's going to work or not. By doing it as a percentage of spend or a percentage of revenue, you have, as long as your media buyers aren't crazy, like they're going to only spend on it if it's working, or Meta's only going to spend on it if it's working. So
Yep.
it allows you to have a better kind of equal, shared goal there. And then tier 3 is like, partnerships and like, you do like co-branded things and landing pages and all of that. But it was just that moment where I was like, I want us to continue to use influencers, but I want us to use them in a smart way that also helps drive our paid, because when you work with influencers and you just do like one-off things, you're so limited in the breadth of which that content can go. And so being able to almost exclusively work with influencers in a way that allows us to use it for paid has been really beneficial.
The other theme I'm seeing on all those successful brands that come on the podcast is just how built out and developed their organic engine is generally. A lot of the ones that I'm talking to that have done best started organically and really built that product market fit with people without paying, and then scaled ads. As someone, I know I think you're an ad first person in the growth world to a degree, but how do you think about that importance of organic in growth today?
It's incredibly important, and I wish I could find more people that I could hire to help with that, to be honest.
Yes.
It's an extremely hard, if you have founders who are already, know how to lean into organic and whatnot, and I mean, Frost Buddy guy, I'm blanking on his name right now.
Yeah. Brock's amazing. Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's a perfect example. He knows how to do organic. He gets in front of the camera and he cranks it. If you've got founders like that, that's awesome. A lot of times I've experienced working with founders who are open to it and they will do it, but it doesn't come natural to them. And so then it becomes a situation of trying to either train them or trying to hire somebody who can help script with them, film with them, and get the content that's needed. And that I found has been a very challenging position to hire, to be honest. But I would say 1,000%, like for all of my brands, organic is a key focus, and it's something that we want to continue to grow. But it has been challenging if it doesn't just like come natural to the founder.
Can you geek out a little bit on account structure and the way you're thinking about that on Meta platforms right now for, say, a brand that's spending $500,000 a month? How do you think about structure for an account like that?
Yeah, it's always like a fun question, because I just did a video on this where I have certain opinions on the account structure, but I've also seen a lot of different varieties work. And so I would say I'm one of those people who's probably open-minded more than like, no, this is it. What I would say is like, I believe in consolidation. So I believe that if you have specific offers or you have specific personas, separating those into a consolidated CBO or ASC, which I think ASC isn't there anymore. It's basically a CBO, ASC. It's like the same thing. I don't know. But you get into like a consolidated campaigns. And I would say that I still think that if you have a certain volume of creative and you are getting a certain volume of creative that you are excited about and you think can hit a net new audience, I do think there is space for some form of like a testing campaign. But my strong opinion on testing campaigns is to not do a flat out ABO where we give, $100 to $1,000, $2,000 per ad, because you're just going to waste a lot of money. And so what I typically do is do a CBO testing campaign where if you've got the budget and you're willing to take the risk, you just set a campaign budget on that, and then you have minimum spends on your new ads, so you get just a little bit behind it, but it limits your downside. Or you set up a CBO and you have it on cost caps and you allow it to run that way. But that's how I would approach testing, and then just having consolidated campaigns per funnel or persona.
With the brands that you've started to work with, what are you don't have to call anyone out, but what are some common themes that you see brands making mistakes with when it comes to their growth?
The most common one that I see, and especially in brands of the size that I'm at, are a little bit of distraction, I would say, in terms of when you're at, high 7 figures, low 8 figures, you have to be hyper-focused on the places that can drive your growth, because your resources are limited. You can't be, unless you've got like some VC backing or whatnot, you don't want to be hiring out the wazoo for everybody to do every single thing and invest in every single tool. So you need to be hyper-focused on the tools and the resources and their time on the right things. I think the places that I see people go wrong is all of a sudden you've got a limited resource, on your team who all of a sudden is doing this thing that looked shiny and fun, but actually is just going to take a ton more work and a ton of time and probably not going to come to fruition for another 6 months, if ever. And that's where I think brands need to just be really hyper-focused on their strategy. And typically the brands that I'm working with, typically that is going to be your meta and your content, your organic strategy, your email and SMS strategy, and your marketing calendar. Like, what are the things that you're doing to add excitement to the brand? And just hyper-focus on those things and try not to get too distracted with every single salesperson who emails you with a new tool that you should trial out.
And so on the growth side, do you guys handle retention, consulting, and growth as well? Deliverability has got to constantly, because people are constantly having to mail more to get the same results. The platforms are all tightening up. I imagine deliverability is just an ongoing challenge with brands.
Yeah, it's one that I haven't dove super deep into. To be honest, I probably should. I know that we work with a couple of my clients. We work with some tools that kind of help and support that. But yeah, I mean, when I think of growth, and I think that different companies approach this differently, but I think growth as 3 buckets. It's your acquisition, it's your retention, and it's your conversion. So I have a pretty strong opinion that your head of growth or your growth operator, our growth operators, for example, need to have oversight of all 3 of those. Because I can't grow your company by just focusing on acquisition, because acquisition's tied to retention. It is. And although I have seen some agencies or whatnot who do only focus on acquisition, which I can understand, but I think that puts so much pressure on the owner to figure out the retention side of the business. And I think that a true head of growth or growth operator should be able to understand the full picture for the business.
You got to follow Sarah on platforms, because you've got a lot of personality on there. Always a good watch. I think one of the ones that's coming to mind recently was just about, like, so much of it also just comes down to the product and how good the product is and how good and so it's how much can you fix from the marketing side if the product isn't great? All right, I guess I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I will not work with a client where I don't think the product's good, to be honest, because it's just. I've been there several times, and it's extremely hard. I mean, you could probably make some money doing it to an extent, but eventually you're going to get customers who aren't happy, and they're not going to come back and buy again, and that's going to eat into your profitability. And it's just, you have to have the right product. I think the other thing is, I have to know when I talk with a client that there's a story to sell, and there's something beyond just the physical product that can help me sell it. I think the video you might be referring to is like I think I did an extreme example where it was like somebody was given like a white shirt, and it was like, sell this white shirt. And it's like, well, what's unique about this white shirt? Does it never stain? Is it really cheap? Is it made with the most amazing material ever? Like, give me something. But if it's literally just a white shirt from China that is actually expensive, like, I can make something up, but it's not going to be genuine and it's going to fall through the cracks at some point. So I would say, yeah, for me, I need to know that the product actually sells.
What does your attribution stack look like? Like how are you sort of when in this omni-channel or unified world, how are you proving incrementality in your organizations?
Fun question. So I'm still actually using a pretty similar formula that I presented at the event that was last year, where I have a forecasting method and then using common sense and every tool available to me to make the right decision at the right time. For the companies I'm working with right now, they're not like on TV or doing direct mail or some of those other things that I was dealing with at Olokai, where you really do need that additional incrementality type of measurement to like get some information to make big 6 to 7 figure budget decisions on. For most of the clients, their stack is pretty minimal. So it's, it's like Meta, Google, TikTok, Bing, some affiliate influencers, and then, we're starting like Amazon and whatnot. And so I still, to this day, use a last click or first click model to be able to set a ROAS target for a new customer ROAS target for each of my channels. And then I have what I call like an organic ratio, which is basically for every dollar that you get from a paid channel, how many dollars do you get from a non-paid channel? So I still use that from a forecasting and tracking perspective, but then also using, like I said, common sense of, if your new customer ROAS goes down on Meta, but your organic ratio goes up and your AMER is where you need it to be, like that's okay. We keep churning and keep going. I also use now, like on Meta, they have the incremental ROAS, which is really helpful to be able to use. And then I do have some clients that are using Northbeam, and I do really like their clicks plus modeled views. So if the client's able to get on Northbeam and use that, I really enjoy that because what it does is it takes your view attribution, which in my model would basically end up in this organic ratio, and applies it to one of the upper funnel tactics. So if somebody clicked on a Meta ad and then viewed a Meta ad and then clicked on a Google ad, rather than giving the credit to the last click on Google because it's a lower funnel tactic, it's going to give the credit back to Meta. And I really like that because that's just common sense. It makes sense. So yeah, I've got my model, and then it's basically every other data point that you have available to you from Northbeam, Triple Whale on platform. And then, like I said, just kind of common sense.
Last question. How are you using AI in your workflows these days? And where are your lines in the sand where you're not?
I haven't gotten into I haven't gotten into AI with people like fake UGC yet. That is a line that I'm going to hesitate.
I like that line.
But I use it a decent amount, honestly, more so in my personal life or like quick admin type things. A lot of what I do right now is I'm coaching and training, and so I'm kind of like on calls with my growth operators or the clients and whatnot. But I do use it a lot to like summarize trainings, or I use it somewhat in my content to help me. But I haven't gotten to the point where, and I don't know if I ever will. This is probably another line that I'll draw, where I will fully just have AI write my like LinkedIn or X content or my scripts, because it never feels like me. Like there's always I always end up having to like fully rewrite it. So I'll use it for inspo and things like that. But I think there's a level of quality and personality that I don't think AI can capture.
Have you seen these announcements for this Neo robot? Can you believe that we live in an era where there's going to be teleoperated people doing chores
Oh my
with
gosh.
cameras looking into your home? Like,
Yes.
what?
Yes.
It seems like a joke. It seems like an idiocracy joke that this is happening.
No, my husband sent that to me yesterday, and I think he was like, "Should we buy one?" And I was like, "No." It's a little scary.
The idea that it's like arbitrages human labor for, that they're going to have these people expertise, like the fact that it's humans on the other side doesn't make it more comforting somehow.
No, it's
It
really
makes it way worse.
It's quite freaky, to be honest. But also, though, the other thing just on AI, before I forget, is that my team and I use it a lot for data analysis. Like the speed of which we can do data analysis now has like quadrupled because of AI. And I think that everyone in this stage, they need to understand how to use AI to be able to. I don't think it's going to, I do think obviously jobs are going to get reduced, and they already are from AI. But I think that as somebody who's like growing in their career, my biggest advice would be like, figure out how you can produce 3 times what just a one person can do, either from being super efficient with your work, just from like work streams and whatnot, and then using AI as much as you can, because that's what companies are looking for right now.
Well, thanks for coming on the D2C podcast again, Sarah. This was always interesting. We'll have to stay in touch. People want to find you and your work. Where do you recommend they go?
Yeah, just you can find me on LinkedIn and X. It's Sarah Carusona, Carusona, or you can go to ba-commerce.com and check us out there.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C podcast. We'll see you next time.